Hey guys, just a quick update before we get into the Rosemary's Baby drinking game. I wanted to let you know that on Thursday, December 2nd, we're going to be on our friend Hector's channel, which is Everything Horror.
That's right, we're going to be live on Thursday, December 2nd, so make sure not to miss us by subscribing to Hector's channel, keeping up to date with us. We're just going to be hanging out, talking about some horror-related content, so feel free to stop by and take a look. Without further ado, let's get on to the drinking game.
Hello, and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we take horror films and turn them into drinking games. We're your two hosts. I'm Tucker.
And I'm Alex. Today we will be making a drinking game for Rosemary's Baby, directed by Roman Polanski. Polanski is also famous for directing other films such as The Ninth Gate, Macbeth, and The Tenant. He, along with Ira Levin, were the writers for the movie. Levin wrote the book, and the movie was a very faithful adaptation to the book.
In Rosemary's Baby, Rosemary and her husband Guy move into an apartment complex, and Rosemary starts to notice weird coincidences starting when she becomes pregnant. Her husband, a struggling actor, starts receiving star roles because of other people's misfortune. People around her keep dying, and her neighbors are seemingly trying to control her body for when she gives birth. It seems like Rosemary's neighbors play a larger role in her life than she initially thought.
If you would like to proceed through the rest of the video, be warned that we will be discussing spoilers for the movie. For those of you who are spoiler sensitive, we recommend you watch the movie now with your drinking rules and come back afterwards. Now, on to the breakdown for the drinking rules.
So our first rule for this drinking game is obviously death, and this is the third video in a row where the deaths are pretty low.
Yeah.
And it only resulted in 3 drinks from this movie.
And technically there was 2 deaths in the movie, but we counted the baby as a third because they said, oh, the baby's dead. So if you go into the movie completely blind, you'll assume that the baby is dead just from that reaction.
Well, yeah, exactly. If it's your first time watching the movie, they say the baby died, so of course you would take a drink for it. That's why we included it in the count. So just pretend like it's your first time watching it, I guess.
Yeah. So rule number 2, as always, is screams, cries, and yells, and this time around it comes to 20.
Yeah, and this is a good time to point out how good Mia Farrow was in the role of Rosemary. Obviously, she played Rosemary. She was so good. Like, she got nominated for a Golden Globe for the Best Female Actress in a movie, and that's almost unheard of in a horror movie, honestly.
Definitely, yeah.
Like, a couple that I can think of is Kathy Bates from Misery won one, and Natalie Portman in The Black Swan is another recent one that won. So from 1990 to 2020, there was only 2 winners.
Yeah, I think there was just 2 actresses in general that was from the horror genre, to be honest.
Which is insane to hear about. But either way, Mia Farrow did an amazing job, and that's where most of the screaming came from. But so in saying that, I'll just move on to rule number 3, which is anytime tannis root is said.
It's lovely. Hey, the green inside is called tannis root. That's for good luck.
This also includes instances where only tannis is said, I guess it's worth saying. Yeah. And this resulted in 13 drinks.
Yeah. I guess it's notable that it is a made-up substance, which it feels like they should have just made something else. Like, they call it the devil's pepper in this, I think in a book or something like that. And maybe the only reason they included it is it's almost an anagram of Satan, but it's not. Yeah. It's just a missing an I instead of an A.
Yeah, it's an anagram for Satin.
Satin, yeah. Maybe it's Santa? Satin? I don't know. I tried really, really hard to find an anagram for it because it just feels like an anagram, but I found jack shit.
Yeah, well, there's anagram in the movie, so that's maybe why you were looking for it. But yeah, tennis was said relatively good amount of times for this, is double digits. It's nice to get some more rules back that are good counts.
So rule number 4 is whenever anybody says baby, and considering the movie is called Rosemary's Baby, we knew we were in for quite a few drinks this time around, as we got 32.
Yeah.
Let's have a baby, all right? Let's have 3 babies, one at a time, all right? A baby, you know, mama, dada, poo-poo, you know.
You mean it?
Sure I mean it. Sure I mean it. I even figured out the right time to start. Look.
And strangely enough, this rule didn't seem like it was mercied all that much, if ever. which for 32 drinks is quite impressive, to be honest, and for it not to be mercy.
I guess it's also worth noting that it was throughout the entire movie for the most part, since they wanted a baby from the beginning of the movie and are led right into the end where they see the baby. So it was pretty much prevalent in the whole film.
Yeah. So moving on to rule number 5, it's whenever we hear about Guy's job. And that could be, someone else mentioning it, him talking about it, he's seen in a commercial, whatever.
Have I seen you in anything?
Let's see, I did Hamlet a while back, didn't I, Liz? And then we did the Sandpiper, and
He's
then...
joking. He was in Luther and Nobody Loves an Albatross and a lot of television plays and commercials.
Anyways, that gave us another double digits in terms of drinks, and it equaled 12.
Yeah. I guess one weird thing that it works for both Tucker and I, we both want to say John instead of Guy. And this has just been a reoccurring thing. Like, it's never really stopped, and we don't know why. We know the actor is named John Cassavetes.
Yeah.
Which is why exactly we keep saying it, but we just never say Guy.
Yeah, and I think it might be because of our Annabelle episode.
That's probably a very big reason on it.
His name was John, and it was based off of Guy from this movie. That's why he was named John, so that's probably why we get mixed up. But anyways, if you haven't heard, his job is an actor. Like, it's mentioned throughout the movie.
Throughout the entire fucking film, yeah.
Yeah, and so if anything about acting relative to Guy, I almost said John again, but relative to Guy, you have to take a drink because of that, obviously.
Well, rule number 6 is whenever Rosemary eats or drinks something, which we had 20 drinks for.
Yeah, and this is important for the plot because it just moves it forward in some cases.
Yeah. All 20 sips basically accounted for Rosemary getting, drugged for the most part by the neighbors, which is the main reason we had it as a rule.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Or being forced tannis fruit in some way.
Yeah.
Which I guess you could just say is being drugged.
Yeah,
Essentially.
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to rule number 7, it's whenever Rosemary visits with a doctor, and this equaled 9 drinks. It is worth noting that she doesn't have to go to a doctor's office. We had this discussion while watching, but it could be like she's just talking with a doctor in a bedroom or her party or, any of those instances.
Yeah.
And it's just another common trope that we found in this movie, which is why we added it. There's not much else to say on that, honestly.
So in saying that, I guess we'll move right on to rule number 8, which is whenever Rosemary feels ill. It's not really prominent in the last half of the movie because she keeps complaining more or less in the first half of the movie how she has constant pain. I'd say from about the first third of the film to about 2/3 point, kind of in that middle section even.
Yeah.
And just for your knowledge, we counted 8 drinks for this rule.
Yeah.
Guy, I have a pain.
Where?
Here.
Just now?
Since Monday.
And rule number 9, it's another fairly common one throughout the whole movie. It's whenever you see a neighbor, and that resulted in 18 drinks. We do want to clarify that it isn't every individual neighbor, because that would have been insane.
Yeah.
It's just anytime there's one neighbor or multiple neighbors in the shot or scene.
We made that mistake when we first made the Rosemary's Drinking Game rules.
The first time we played it.
A lot of the games we play prior, and then we slowly realized that maybe we shouldn't have every single neighbor on there, because then it's basically mercy in every rule.
Yeah.
It's just like the time we played the It Drinking Game when we included a drink every time anybody says it, which is the 10th most common word in the English language.
Yeah, pretty
So
much.
that was a mistake.
But we knew that was going to be rough.
Oh, definitely. Moving on to a 10th rule, which probably isn't the 10th most common word in the English language, is whenever witch or witches or witchcraft is brought up.
Yeah.
Adrian Mercato practiced witchcraft. He made quite a splash in the 90s by announcing that he'd conjured up the living devil. Apparently people believed him, so they attacked and nearly killed him in the lobby of the Brantford.
Which resulted in 12 drinks.
Yeah, and this more so happened near the end of the movie, I'd say. Maybe middle to end type of thing. And yeah, it's a prevalent part of the plot, so it's key to include it, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't really prevalent in a lot of opening scenes, but definitely, as you said, more or less towards the end. Like, you saw the book that she was passed down from her dead friend, forgot what his name is already.
Yeah.
Who was way too old to be Rosemary's friend, probably.
Yeah, and we might get to that. But
yeah.
Also, I guess you brought up the book. It is worth noting that even if the word witches or witchcraft is seen like in text,
Yeah.
that still requires a drink. So just be aware of that. It's not only when someone says it, but it's just, you know, you see it or it's said type of thing. Anyways, that wraps up all the rules, and the total amount of drinks for this movie was 147. And honestly, it's kind of nice to get back up into that higher range where, you know, you're actually feeling it by the end of the movie, and it's not just a casual drink like the last few have been.
Definitely, yeah.
So this one, it resulted in just under 5 standard cans, which obviously is based off of our 30 sip per can scale that we use. And like I said, it's just nice to have another higher one, I'd say.
Yeah, it was, I feel like, more difficult through the end, but again, it was still pretty well paced out for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. The key thing for me that I took away was when they were saying baby. It just, because it happened throughout, it gets sprinkled in with a lot of other rules when the other rules are happening, so it kind of feels like more, well, there is more happening kind of thing, but generally it is pretty well paced, I'd say.
Yeah. There were some scenes where there was a lot of, like, as you said, babies. Even Tanasu was said, like, in a lot of scenes.
Yeah.
Especially the scenes where she was eating and drinking. So if she eats, that's one. If she drinks, that's one. So that's 2.
True.
We were counting double drinks for that. We should have clarified that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and not to mention, almost every scene had a neighbor in it.
Yeah, that's another thing, the neighbors. And they're very obnoxious neighbors at that.
Yeah.
Like, it's worth saying.
So we mentioned Annabelle the movie in one of our discussions before. As you guys know, if you watched that episode, we weren't a big fan of Annabelle the movie. It was kind of garbage. And this movie is just a complete 180. Like, it has perfect pacing. Like, from start to finish. It was very, very well done. The build up to the climax is very phenomenal, I feel. Like, that was definitely one of the tipping points. It probably made it one of the top horror movies of all time, just because of that climax, the payoff. Everything made that part so much better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, the reason we're bringing up Annabelle is because Annabelle was basically a rip-off of this movie, and just a shittily done rip-off at that.
Yeah.
So, like, that's why we're talking about Annabelle and what we thought about it. But, yeah, like Alex said, this movie is so much better, like, in every aspect. Like, the actors are better. Rosemary, you actually feel for what she's feeling, and, you know, she's not a bland character. She sticks out type of thing, you know? So you mentioned that we really feel for Rosemary throughout the movie because of how good Mia Farrow plays her. And she nearly does everything right to get away, honestly, but she still fails. And the main reason for that is because Guy, her husband, was in on the whole thing, and he was a big part of it from the beginning. Well, I guess not technically from the beginning, but after he met with the neighbors and, like, you know, got to know them, then that's when he kind of got in on it.
Yeah, he's like at the very beginning, he hates the neighbors. Like, oh, we have to go to their house. And the next day, he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go hang out with them. He had some interesting stories.
Just an instant change of heart, I guess.
Yeah, it's you don't really see it like on your first viewing of the film, but it's something you kind of note on your like second, especially if you were to watch it like right after, you recognize it almost instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
She invited us to have dinner with them tonight. I told her I'd have to check with you, but that it'd probably be okay.
Oh, Jesus, we don't have to do that, do we, honey? Well, the stories are pretty damned interesting, though. Never even heard of Forbes Robertson before. I'm gonna go over there again tomorrow night and hear some more.
So I guess now we'll get into the big reveal of the movie, which was basically that they didn't end up sacrificing the baby like Rosemary initially thought was happening. And that the baby was the devil's son. And for me, this was the perfect reveal. And like, you kind of, there was foreshadowing obviously because of her being drugged and going through all those dreams and crazy scenes that we see throughout the movie. And yeah, it was just the build up, and then finally the payoff was done so good, I think.
Yeah, so like Mia Farrow's acting in that scene by far really good. Like, best actor in the movie hands down. On top of that, they just don't give a shit about her anymore. But like, besides the mother aspect, they were just like, "What's in this drink? What are you feeding me? It's just tea. Calm down, drink. You'll feel better."
Yeah.
And then they're just like, "Gig's up. What are we gonna do now?"
Yeah.
And then they convinced her to be a mother to the devil's son, Adrian. Yeah, Adrian.
Adrian.
So it kind of alludes at the end of the movie that she does end up being the mother to Adrian.
Yeah.
Which I feels like very. Like, it's not a happy ending for sure. It's very cynical, if anything.
Yeah, it's not a happy ending. It's some may say it's a happy ending because she gets to be the mother of her son.
Yeah, it's kind of at what cost?
It's it's dark too. Like, yeah, it's just a dark movie overall, really.
Mm-hmm. But the suspense in Rosemary's Baby just basically makes it a work of art for the most part.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like the storytelling involved is what makes this a classic horror movie.
Definitely, yeah.
And in saying that, like in terms of horror movies from the 60s or around that time, this is up there with one of my favorite, if not my favorite one. It's literally between this movie and Psycho for my top favorite horror movies of the 60s.
Yeah.
And for this one, like I said, it's the storytelling, it's the fear of the childbirth, like not to mention how masterfully the film was made and portrayed, and the acting on top of it. It just, everything was so well done, and like I don't have anything bad to say about it, really.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it was almost a flawless movie. It was my favorite horror movie of the 60s.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you pretty much tapped on everything here, it was just so well done all around.
So I guess now is a good time to get into the Darwin Awards, where we award one not-so-lucky nominee the Darwin Award. This award goes out to a character who made a stupid decision that resulted in them getting killed, someone else getting killed, or simply resulting in something bad happening that could have easily been avoided. This award could also be given to a character who is just plain dumb. Here are the nominees.
Today's first nominee is the neighbors for keeping Rosemary's Baby in the same building and trying to convince her that the child is dead.
There were complications, Rosemary, but nothing that'll affect future births. Dead.
The problem with this is that the baby cries a lot and the walls are razor thin.
Next, we have Laura Louise for trying to be a mother and acting super suspicious when taking Rosemary's breast milk. She also has no idea how to rock a child to sleep. If anything, she is going to shake it to death and ruin 9 months of plotting.
Finally, we have Guy for trading his firstborn child for fame and fortune. With this trade, however, likely comes an end to times. So if hindsight is 20/20, Guy is as blind as the actor he stole the leading role from.
And the winner is Guy. Guy is not only a terrible husband, but he's also so selfish that he doesn't think about his wife, nor the rest of the world, and likely dooms all of humanity.
And with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our look into Rosemary's Baby. If you ended up playing the drinking game alongside the movie, or if you have any other feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Also let us know in the comments if this is your favorite horror movie from the era, and if not, what is.
Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next week's episode, where we are going to be making a drinking game for Gremlins, as the holiday season is right around the corner. If you want to check out the shitty version of Rosemary's Baby, click on our review of Annabelle in the top right. If you want to see a playlist of all the drinking games and movies we review, click on the box below it. Thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying cheers to fears.